Welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, March 16, 2026. So, lots to pack in today's episode, but let's get through it. Starting off with Kat and this impulsive kiss of hers with EJ. I guess she's trying to stall whatever is happening with the search for Stephanie and finding out what EJ is really going on with in that secret lab of his. But she withdrew herself back and said that, she's sorry for being impulsive. And EJ is like, it was meant to be. And he pulls her in for another kiss. And then, he draws back because he remembers when he tried to do that before, he felt as if, it was reciprocated on Kat's end. So Kat said, she does remember a time when they did kiss back in Italy and, it's very foggy, but she was just trying to make up something on the spot, luring EJ into what, it was all about so that, it can take up for more time to, let Rafe get what he needed to get out of there. Now, Paulina was at the hospital trying to do a little bit of damage control, trying to find out what Kayla knows about EJ and his secret lab, and trying to cover her tracks, basically, right? So, on another hand, she's also catching up with Kayla and asking her about her daughter and how is she holding up. And she just gives her words of encouragement and sends some optimism her way, even though it's hard to be optimistic given that, your daughter's been missing for so long. But she just wanted to send some positive energy her way, and Kayla receives it. And she said, your daughter is strong, resilient. She'll be back to you in no time soon. At some point, they do find Stephanie and brought her to the main area of the hospital. And of course, Paulina is ecstatic. Kayla is over the moon, and she takes her to a waiting room. At that time, she tells Paulina to call Steve, who we'll get into at some point, and tell her to actually tell him what's really going on, and that Stephanie is rescued. Now back to Brady, Steve, and Owen. So they were able to accost them, and Steve was just trying to find out where's his daughter. Is she okay? Is she alive? And he said that he would never hurt Stephanie, but he's not going to tell Steve where her locations is. And he said, if you don't tell me, then I'm going to make your life a living hell and all that. So he was ready to just suffocate the living life out of Owen. But Brady said, Steve, let's not do that because we can be able to, get some information out of him. And Steve is like, you're very lucky that Brady's around. So at some point, they do bring him to the police station where Jada was able to formally arrest him. Now, Rafe and Alex split up in parts of EJ's lab, and Rafe was able to see the pod, and he's wondering who was in it, who escaped out of it. He took a picture of it for later on to question EJ about it. He also sent Kat a message about where's EJ, and she does tell him the whereabouts. And while that's happening, EJ gets a text from Rolf talking about the Lexi's body has been removed, and he asks further on about I guess what happened to the people that were here, referring to Stephanie and Jeremy. Now, he didn't get a response because that's when Rafe came in to question him and later arrest him. Now, Alex, on the other hand, which I was really annoyed with, Alex, he found Jeremy holding Stephanie without even knowing what context he was holding her. Why, took it out of context and said, get away from her. He started, plummeting him and, beating him up, pushing him aside. And he's like, Stephanie, oh my gosh, Stephanie. And he put Stephanie in the chair and he asked the questions, I'm so glad you're okay and blah, blah, blah. So Jeremy's like, she needs to get some serious help, and he's like, you stay away from her, and he begins to beat him some more, and Rafe overhears it before he could even find out what's going on with the pod, and he comes in and he stops Alex, and he's like, he's the reason why Stephanie's like this. And Stephanie had to catch her breath and said, it's not Jeremy is innocent. He's the one who saved my life, helped me through this. Owen was the one who had me and Jeremy here. And look at Alex's face, like a damn idiot. And I'm just saying, he's just so annoying, boorish and annoying throughout this whole episode, right? But anyways, Rafe was able to get help for Jeremy and take him to a room, and Paulina was asking him what's going on, and he spoke briefly about them being held captive, and also the fact that there's a pod there, and it seems as if it was empty, right? So now Paulina's trying to reach EJ, and that's when EJ was dealing with Rafe and getting arrested. Once again, civilians have to do the police job because Brady and Steve, they hauled Owen in, and there is Jada just there twiddling around, just lazy, honestly. And she was like, there you are. All she did was just put some cuffs on him and say you're under arrest for kidnapping and harassment and whatever else. And she asked our officer to just watch him while she spoke to Steve, and that's when Steve had the good news. Well, he heard the good news about Stephanie, and he's overjoyed about that. Owen overheard, and he asked Steve. Steve hugged Brady, and Steve thanked Brady for all his work. And who would know Brady was the one who would crack the code on this? Thanks to Brady. The day was saved partly to Brady. But anyway, he said your dad would be proud, and Brady stayed back to really question Owen. And he was like, did EJ have you involved this time with this kidnapping? He said, no, it wasn't EJ, it was Rolf. So it's like, what are you and Rolf working at? Like, which patient are you involved with? And he said, I can't really tell you that. So he said, you're going to be here for a long while. You want some snacks, whatever. So I said, no, I just want Stephanie. And, I read her novel and I was very, enthused about it. So I said, yes, there's a shot for us. I mean, I haven't thought about Stephanie in 17 years, but reading that novel made me want to be close to her and all of that, right? So, there was bits and pieces about why he did what he did, but yeah, that was really it today. So Jada and Steve, they came on. Kayla and Alex were already there, and Kayla's just happy to have her daughter back, and she's sorry for all that she went through. And Stephanie said, it's okay. The good thing is I'm here now. And she talks about how her dad and Kayla talked about how her dad and Brady was the one who got Owen, and he won't hurt anybody else. Jada's happy to see her friend, and she is just sorry for everything and told her not to disappear again. She said, I won't. Alex also shared some sentiments on that. And Stephanie's having bouts of, I guess, PTSD from her time with Owen torturing her, and not in a physical way, but she was just so scared of him and what she had to do, kissing. She didn't tell Alex that part, but I guess, she's, gotta give her some time to really come to, she talked about how Jeremy was heroic, and, they're just sorry. Everybody owes Jeremy a grand apology because they're just sorry that they pinned the wrong guy just because of his past with Stephanie. And she asks how is he doing, and Kayla said that he's being tended to. There goes Alex looking like a big jackass yet again for how he treated Jeremy. He even caused some of that injury because he punched the guy and he was bleeding at the mouth. Like, come on now. But anyway, Steve felt bad. He felt guilty that he didn't caught it first. I mean, I would feel guilty because come on now, Steve, you're top PI. How you didn't catch that it was Owen the first time? Shame on you. You should feel bad. But anyways, Stephanie is like, you did all that you could, and you helped to get Owen in custody, so you did what you could, and everybody else I'm grateful for. And Kayla and Steve had a moment, and Kayla's just happy, and it just shows her that life is so precious and you have to just really treasure everybody around you. And at some point Jada goes to question Jeremy as well. Now Jada comes in, and Jeremy is like, am I under arrest? Do I need a lawyer? So she said no, but myself owes you apology and everybody else does. Now he was on the phone with Julia, and he informed Julia what's going on, and he told Julia to inform his dad as well. And Julia was begging to come there. He didn't want no extra attention, but she insisted, and he said, all right, cool. Now Jada asked him a few questions about the whole experience, and he also asked how is Stephanie. She said she's on the mend, and that was really it with them. So this jackass, because I'm going to continue to call him a jackass throughout the rest of this recap, because come on now. Like, the way how he treated Jeremy was so disgusting. And even after the fact that he found out that it was Owen, he still did not, immediately apologize for his behavior and his actions and putting his hands on the guy and harassing him all these months. Now he comes there with his half-ass apology towards Jeremy, talking about, everybody owes him a grand apology and he's sorry. And, Jeremy is like, well, you weren't the only one that thought the worst of me. All I wanted was for Stephanie to be safe and happy. Now, he tried to make small talk with him and talking about how his thumb, what's up with his thumb. So he said he dislocated it with the help of Stephanie to help get out the handcuffs and help her get out. Now the door was so hard to open, and at that time it was open or whatever. Stephanie collapsed, and she was weak, cold, and that's why he was trying to keep her warm. And that's when he came in and tried to assume wrongly that they were up to something. Now he said no need to apologize, explain. I get it. So Jeremy said, speaking of, Stephanie being happy, I heard that you guys are married. You called her your wife. So he said, yeah, we eloped on Valentine's Day. So he said, it's funny. Stephanie didn't mention that at all during our time together. So I was laughing at that point because you go, Jeremy. He deserved it. So anyways, Alex was like, when are you leaving town again, Jeremy? So he said, maybe I'll stick around a little longer. I'm not sure. I hope he does because, I honestly feel as if, they had a lot of chemistry while being held captive together. Strange enough. But I don't know. I wouldn't mind Stephanie and the reformed Jeremy to be together again. What about you guys? Because Joy is coming back in April with the baby. It's going to mess up their marriage. Maybe Stephanie is going to turn to Jeremy, because she's hurt by everything. Oh, who knows? That's my theory. What do you guys think? So while what was going on at the hospital, EJ and Kat were there, and they were still talking, and Rafe comes in, guns are blazing, talking about Stephanie is found alive, and guess where she was hiding out at? Somewhere in your lab. And I also found the pod, and it seemed that somebody was there. They got stowed away somewhere else. So can you explain all of these things? And EJ is like, I don't have nothing to do with Stephanie's kidnapping at all. And he's like, that's bull. Like, you probably hired Owen. Owen was under the mirror payroll for years. So you think I, should believe you on that? So he said, no, I didn't even know that Owen Kent was around. I haven't seen him since 17 years ago. So again, Rafe is not trying to believe it. And I'm just saying too, Owen even said EJ wasn't a part of it. So Rafe coming on baseless accusations when it comes on to the part about Stephanie's kidnapping. He doesn't even wait to hear back from the police or whatever. He's just taking the opportunity because he has a personal vendetta against EJ and hatred towards him. He wants to just unequivocally arrest him unethically, and I'm just saying it's just crazy that he's doing that. And EJ is like, I need my lawyer, and he's just slapping the cuffs on. He doesn't even say, okay, let's go down the station for more questioning. He just wanted to be biased and just do this foolishness. And I'm just saying, yes, he's a part of the FBI, but who gives him the right to do these things? Doesn't he have a right to the lawyer and everything? Like, he does not even have a direct charge against EJ where, he can get the evidence and prove back to him. Just about Stephanie's kidnapping. Like, the pod, I can understand, but Stephanie's kidnapping. But anyways, Kat asks, hey, do you want me to do anything while you're away? So he said, call Rita. So Rita is his, right hand woman already. So she's gonna get things done. But I just don't like how Rafe behaves boorish towards EJ. Yes, EJ has done a lot to you and whatever, but there's a thin line between being personal and professional. And you weren't being professional a while ago. But anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys tomorrow.